The wrench slipped from Marcus Hale's hand and clattered against the concrete floor of the auto shop, echoing in the near-empty space. He didn't flinch. His fingers, still steady despite the grease coating them, reached for the tool again as he crouched beneath the hood of a battered sedan that had seen better days a decade ago. The fluorescent lights above flickered intermittently, casting shadows that danced across his dark skin, highlighting the quiet concentration in his eyes. "Hey, you done yet or what?" The voice came from behind him, sharp and impatient. Marcus didn't turn around immediately. He tightened the bolt he'd been working on, his movements deliberate and unhurried. "Almost," he said quietly, his voice carrying none of the irritation that would have been justified. "Almost ain't good enough, man. I got places to be." The customer, a younger man in an expensive tracksuit that probably cost more than Marcus's entire week's wages, shifted his weight from foot to foot. "You people always take forever with the simplest things." Marcus straightened slowly, wiping his hands on a rag that had long ago lost its original color. He was tall, broader in the shoulders than his worn coveralls suggested, with close-cropped hair that was beginning to show gray at the temples. His face was unreadable, carved from stone and patience. "It'll be ready in 10 minutes, Marcus said evenly. "The fuel line had a crack. If I hadn't fixed it properly, you'd have been stranded on the highway by tonight." The customer sucked his teeth. "Whatever. Just hurry up. And don't think you're charging me extra for that. I didn't ask for no fuel line work." Marcus nodded once and turned back to the engine. Behind him, he heard the customer mutter something under his breath about these mechanics trying to hustle everybody, before walking back toward the waiting area. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, then relaxed. He'd heard worse. He'd survived worse. This was nothing. The shop owner, a portly man named Jimmy who'd inherited the business from his father, appeared from the office. "Marcus, you good? That guy giving you trouble?" "No trouble, Jimmy." "You sure?" "Because I can handle it if I'm sure." Marcus's tone was final but not unkind. Jimmy meant well, even if he didn't quite understand why a man like Marcus worked in a place like this. Nobody did. That was the point. 20 minutes later, the sedan pulled out of the shop with a rebuilt fuel line and a perfectly tuned engine, the customer having paid the base rate and not $1 more, despite Marcus's expertise having likely saved his life. Marcus watched the taillights disappear into the evening traffic, then checked his watch. 7:15. He needed to get home. "Marcus, before you go." Jimmy approached with an envelope. "Your pay for the week. And listen, I know you don't like talking about this, but that school called again. Said they're looking for donations for their scholarship fund. They mentioned your name specifically." Marcus took the envelope without opening it. "Tell them I'm not interested. They said something about your service record. Said you qualified for some kind of recognition ceremony next month. International thing. Sounded pretty important." "Jimmy." Marcus's voice dropped half an octave. "Tell them no. Please." Jimmy raised both hands in surrender. All right. But man, I don't get you sometimes. If I had credentials like yours, I'd be. You'd be exactly where you are," Marcus interrupted gently. "Living your life the way you choose to live it. Same as me." He left before Jimmy could respond, stepping out into the cool evening air. The city stretched around him, indifferent and enormous, its towers of glass and steel reaching toward a sky turning purple with dusk. Somewhere in one of those towers, his name was still on documents that moved billions of dollars. Somewhere in a vault in Geneva, a medal with his name engraved on it sat unclaimed. Somewhere in the halls of power that spanned continents, people still spoke of Marcus Hale in reverent tones, unaware that he now spent his days beneath car hoods in a neighborhood most of them would never visit. But none of that mattered. Not anymore. What mattered was getting home to check on Evan. Marcus's brother had been home from the hospital for 3 months now. The physical therapy was showing results, the doctors said. The psychological recovery would take longer. It always did. Marcus thought about the call he'd received 2 years ago, the one that had changed everything. The words, catastrophic incident, and your brother, should never appear in the same sentence, yet they had. And in that moment, standing in a conference room overlooking Geneva while diplomats and generals waited for his decision on matters of international security, Marcus had made the only choice that mattered. He'd walked away from all of it. His phone buzzed as he unlocked his modest sedan, parked in the employee section of the lot. A text from an unknown number. The Meridian Accord requests your presence at the annual summit. Your contributions have not been forgotten. Please reconsider. Marcus deleted it without responding. They requested his presence at least once a month. His answer was always the same silence. The drive home took 40 minutes through traffic that crawled and surged like a living thing. Marcus didn't mind. The quiet of the car, the rhythm of the road, the distance from the person everyone thought he used to be, these were luxuries he'd learned to appreciate. He pulled into the driveway of a small but well-maintained house in a neighborhood where people still sat on their porches and knew their neighbors' names. Inside, he found Evan in the living room, sitting in the recliner with his leg elevated. The younger man looked up as Marcus entered, his face brightening with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. You're late, Evan said. Hot date. Traffic. Marcus set down his keys and moved to the kitchen, automatically starting the process of making dinner. How was therapy? Painful. Humiliating. The usual. Evan's attempt at humor fell flat. The therapist says I'm making progress. You are. Yeah, well, tell that to Lena. Marcus paused mid-motion, his hand on the refrigerator door. She called again? Texted. Same thing as always. When am I sending money? Why am I being selfish? Her mother needs the guest room, so I need to figure out my own situation. Evan's voice cracked slightly. I'm her husband, Marcus. We've been married 3 years. I got injured serving my country, and now I'm an inconvenience. Marcus turned to face his brother fully. Evan was 32, 8 years younger than Marcus, and the injury had aged him in ways that had nothing to do with the titanium pins in his leg. There was a brittleness to him now, a fragility that Marcus recognized because he'd seen it in the eyes of soldiers who'd lost more than flesh and bone in combat. You're not an inconvenience, Marcus said quietly. And you're not sending her anything. She's pregnant, Marcus. That's my child. Which is exactly why you're not sending money into a household that treats you like a burden. When she's ready to have an actual conversation about your marriage and your role as a father, we'll talk. Until then, you focus on getting better. Evan looked away, his jaw working. You gave up everything for me. Your career, your life. And I can't even keep my own wife from kicking me out of my own house. I didn't give up anything. Marcus returned to the kitchen, pulling out ingredients for a meal. I chose what mattered. There's a difference. The news said you were in line for a position at Hale Dynamics. Vice chairman or something. That you'd be the youngest person ever to. The news says a lot of things. Marcus. Evan. Marcus's tone was firm but not harsh. I need you to understand something. What I did before, who I was in those rooms and those meetings, none of that was real life. This is real life. You, me, this house, making sure you can walk without pain again. That's what's real. Everything else was just noise. The silence that followed was heavy with things unsaid. Evan finally nodded, accepting the lie because the truth was too complicated, too wrapped up in guilt and sacrifice and the kind of love that didn't need acknowledgement to exist. Marcus cooked while Evan dozed in the chair, the television playing low in the background. The meal was simple but prepared with care, the kind of attention to detail that Marcus brought to everything he did, whether it was rebuilding an engine or planning a multinational security operation. The phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a number he recognized. Congratulations on the Valor Star recognition. The ceremony is scheduled for next month in Brussels. Your attendance would honor us all. Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. The Valor Star was the highest civilian military honor awarded by the International Defense Cooperation. It came with a monetary prize of €500,000 and guaranteed access to any diplomatic or security council in the world. Recipients were typically heads of state or legendary military commanders. Marcus had been nominated 3 times before finally being selected, recognition for operations that had prevented conflicts most of the world would never know had been on the verge of erupting. He deleted the message. Dinner was quiet, punctuated only by the soft clink of utensils against plates, and the distant sound of traffic outside. Marcus watched his brother eat, noting the way Evan's hand trembled slightly when he reached for his water glass. The tremor wasn't from the injury. It was stress, the kind that burrowed deep into your nervous system and made a home there. "She wants me to sign papers," Evan said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Lena's lawyer sent them yesterday. Says I need to agree to financial terms before the baby comes." Marcus set down his fork. "What kind of terms?" "Monthly payments. Insurance coverage. And I have to agree not to contest her primary custody claim." Evan's voice was hollow. "I haven't even met my kid yet, and I'm already being written out of their life. You're not signing anything without proper legal review." "I can't afford a lawyer, Marcus. I can barely afford my medication. I'll handle it." Evan's face twisted. "You've already handled enough. You've put your entire life on hold for me. I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm telling you." Marcus leaned forward, his voice dropping to that tone of absolute certainty that used to command rooms full of generals. "You're my brother. You got hurt because of proximity to my work. That makes this my responsibility, and I don't abandon my responsibilities. The incident wasn't your fault. The incident happened because someone wanted to send me a message. They chose you because they knew it would hurt me more than any bullet could." Marcus's jaw tightened. "So yes, Evan, it was my fault. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you're protected, provided for, and treated with the dignity you deserve." Evan's eyes glistened. "I don't know what I did to deserve a brother like you. You were born. That's all you had to do." Marcus stood, collecting the plates. "Now stop worrying about lawyers and money and focus on your physical therapy. Everything else is handled." Later that night, after Evan had gone to bed, Marcus sat in his small home office with the door closed. The room was sparse, containing only a desk, a chair, and a single filing cabinet that held the few documents he'd kept from his previous life. He opened his laptop, the screen illuminating his face in the darkness, and accessed an encrypted email account that he checked perhaps once a month. 743 unread messages. He scrolled through them, his expression unchanging. Requests for consultation from defense ministries. Job offers from private security firms with compensation packages that included 8 figures. Invitations to speak at conferences in Dubai, Singapore, London, Tokyo. A personal note from the Secretary General of the United Nations. Another from the CEO of Hale Dynamics, reminding him that his shares in the company were generating dividends he never claimed, now totaling somewhere north of $40 million. Marcus had redirected all of it. Every dividend, every residual payment, every honorarium had been funneled into blind trusts that supported veterans' medical programs, scholarship funds for children of fallen service members, and rehabilitation centers in conflict zones. His accountant, one of the few people who knew the full extent of his financial situation, had stopped questioning the decisions years ago. "You could change the world with this money," she told him once. "I am changing the world," he'd replied. "Just not the parts people see." He composed a single email, brief and direct, to a law firm in the city. "Need representation for family matter. Divorce proceeding with custody complications. Client is a disabled veteran with limited income. Bill me directly at routing number provided. Confidentiality essential." He hit send, then closed the laptop. The next morning, Marcus was back at the shop before Jimmy arrived, already working on a transmission rebuild that would take most of the day. He worked methodically, his hands moving with practiced efficiency, his mind quiet in the way it only got when he was solving concrete problems with tangible solutions. An engine either ran or it didn't. A transmission either shifted smoothly or it ground. There was honesty in mechanical work, a purity of cause and effect that human systems could never match. "Marcus!" Jimmy's voice cut through the morning quiet. "Got someone here to see you." Marcus slid out from under the vehicle, wiping his hands. A man stood in the doorway of the garage, tall and lean, with salt and pepper hair and the kind of posture that screamed military background. Marcus recognized him immediately, though they never met in person. "General Patterson," Marcus said neutrally. "Just Patterson now. Retired 6 months ago." The man extended his hand. Marcus shook it, noting the firm grip, the calluses that came from someone who still trained regularly despite being in his 60s. "Can we talk? I'm working. It's important. It always is." Patterson glanced at Jimmy, who was pretending very hard not to eavesdrop while obviously listening to every word. "Maybe somewhere more private?" Marcus considered refusing, then nodded once. 20 minutes. There's a diner 2 blocks north." Patterson agreed and left. Jimmy immediately appeared at Marcus's elbow. "Who was that?" He looked like someone important. "Old colleague. From the service?" "Something like that." Marcus returned to his work, but his concentration was fractured now. Patterson wouldn't have come in person unless something was seriously wrong. The man had been part of the International Defense Cooperation's inner circle, one of the architects of the coalition that Marcus had once led. His retirement had been mentioned in the encrypted emails Marcus had ignored. 20 minutes later, Marcus walked into the diner still wearing his coveralls, grease under his fingernails, and found Patterson sitting in a back booth nursing a coffee. The contrast between them was stark. Patterson wore a tailored suit that probably cost $3,000. Marcus looked like exactly what he was supposed to be, a mechanic on his break. "You're hard to find," Patterson said as Marcus slid into the booth opposite him. "That's intentional. I went through 4 intermediaries just to confirm you were still in the country. Nobody knew where you'd gone. There were rumors you died. Others said you'd taken a position with a private firm in Eastern Europe. I'm right here." Patterson studied him for a long moment. "You look different. Older." "I am older. It's been 2 years. That's not what I mean. You look..." Patterson searched for the word. "Settled. Like you've made peace with something." "Maybe I have." Marcus signaled the waitress for coffee. "Why are you here, Patterson?" "The Meridian Accord is in trouble. There's a coordinated effort to undermine several key initiatives, and the funding structure is collapsing. Without intervention, programs that protect millions of people in conflict zones will disappear within 6 months. That's unfortunate." Patterson's eyebrows rose. "Unfortunate? Marcus, these are programs you helped design. Your strategic framework is still the foundation of everything we do. And you think it's just unfortunate? I think it's someone else's problem now. There is no someone else. Not with your combination of strategic insight and diplomatic access. The current leadership is competent, but they don't have your relationships, your credibility, your..." "Patterson." Marcus's voice cut through the older man's words like a blade. "I'm not coming back. I'm not asking you to come back permanently. Just consult. A few calls, some strategic guidance. You wouldn't even need to leave the city. No. People are going to die, Marcus. Without proper coordination, without the funding these programs provide, people are going to die. Children are going to die." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "That's not fair. It's the truth. You know it is. You've always known it." Patterson leaned forward. "I understand why you left. What happened to Evan was inexcusable. The security failure was on us, not you. But walking away completely, cutting off all contact, pretending none of it matters anymore, that's not who you are. You don't know who I am." I know you led 53 successful peacekeeping operations across 4 continents. I know you negotiated the Karachi Accords that prevented a nuclear exchange. I know you personally funded the evacuation of 3,000 civilians from a war zone using your own money when the bureaucracy moved too slowly. I know you gave up a vice chairmanship at a Fortune 500 company to take care of your brother. Patterson's voice softened. I know you're a man who takes responsibility seriously. Maybe too seriously. The waitress brought Marcus's coffee. He wrapped his hands around the cup, feeling its warmth, saying nothing. The Valor Star ceremony is next month. Patterson continued. If you attend, you'll have access to every major power broker in the international community. One conversation could shift the funding landscape. One handshake could save a program. You don't have to commit to anything long-term. Just show up. Accept the recognition you've earned. Remind people why they trusted you in the first place. I can't. Can't or won't? Both. Marcus met Patterson's gaze directly. My brother's wife is divorcing him. She's pregnant with his child, and she's trying to cut him out of his own kid's life because he got injured and can't provide the lifestyle she expected. He needs me here, not in Brussels shaking hands with diplomats. Bring him with you. We'll arrange everything. Medical support, legal representation, whatever he needs. He needs stability. He needs to know that someone in his life isn't going to disappear when things get complicated. Marcus stood, placing a few bills on the table for the coffee. I'm sorry about the Meridian Accord. I hope you find someone who can help. But that someone isn't me. Not anymore. Patterson watched him walk away, his expression unreadable. Just before Marcus reached the door, the older man called out. The people who targeted Evan, they're still out there, you know. Still operating. Still dangerous. Marcus. His brother's voice was tight, strained. You need to come home. Now. Marcus was in his car before Evan finished the sentence. What happened? Lena showed up. With her mother and her lawyer. They're here, in the house, saying I need to vacate immediately. They're threatening to call the police if I don't leave tonight. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. Just keep them there. Marcus broke every speed limit getting home. He pulled into the driveway to find a Mercedes and a BMW parked on the street, both vehicles worth more than his house. Inside, he found Evan standing in the living room, leaning heavily on his cane, his face pale. Across from him stood 3 people. A woman in her early 30s with perfectly styled hair and designer clothes that screamed money, an older woman who shared her features but wore her disdain more openly, and a man in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. Lena's eyes widened when Marcus entered. Who are you? I'm Marcus. Evan's brother. I own this house. The lawyer stepped forward, extending a card. Richard Pemberton, representing Mrs. Hale. We weren't aware Mr. Hale was residing with family. However, that doesn't change the financial obligations outlined in the separation agreement. Marcus didn't take the card. What separation agreement? My brother hasn't signed anything. The draft agreement, Pemberton corrected smoothly, which outlines reasonable expectations for spousal and child support given Mr. Hale's current employment status. He's unemployed due to a service-related injury. Nevertheless, obligations exist. Mrs. Hale is 6 months pregnant and requires stability. The terms are quite generous, considering Mr. Hale's limited prospects. Lena's mother snorted. Limited prospects. That's putting it kindly. My daughter married a military man with a future. What she got was a cripple living in his brother's charity. Marcus turned his gaze to the older woman. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. Say that again. Something in his tone made her step back. Lena grabbed her mother's arm. Mom, don't. I'm just speaking truth. Evan can't provide for my daughter or my grandchild. The kindest thing he can do is step aside and let her find someone who can. Marcus looked at Evan, saw the humiliation written across his brother's face, the way his shoulders hunched as if trying to make himself smaller. Something cold and terrible settled in Marcus's chest. "Get out of my house," he said. Pemberton cleared his throat. "Mr. Hale, I understand emotions are high, but we're here to discuss a reasonable arrangement that serves everyone's interests, particularly the child's. The child whose father you're trying to erase before they're even born." "That child's interests?" Marcus moved closer, and despite being in coveralls and smelling of motor oil, despite looking like nothing more than a mechanic, everyone in the room suddenly felt very small. "You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police and report a break-in." "This is hardly a break-in. Mrs. Hale has every right." "Mrs. Hale has no right to enter my property without permission. Neither do you. Neither does her mother." 20 seconds. Lena found her voice. "Evan, tell your brother to calm down. We're trying to work this out civilly." Evan laughed, a broken sound. "Civilly? You kicked me out of our home while I was still using a walker. You told me I was an embarrassment to your family. You said our child would be better off not knowing their father than knowing a failure." His voice cracked. "And now you want civil? You were bringing us down." Lena shot back, her composure cracking. "Do you know what it's like to explain to my friends that my husband is a mechanic's assistant? That he can barely walk? That he contributes nothing? He served his country," Marcus said. "He took a bullet meant for someone else. He's shown more courage in 3 years than you'll manage in your entire life. Courage doesn't pay bills." "No, but I do." Marcus pulled out his phone. 10 seconds. "Then I'm calling the police, and I'm calling the press." I'm sure they'd love a story about a pregnant woman and her lawyer harassing a disabled veteran. The optics would be fascinating. Pemberton's expression hardened. "Are you threatening my client?" "I'm promising you consequences." 5 seconds. The lawyer looked at Lena, who was staring at Marcus with something between fear and calculation. Her mother was already moving toward the door, muttering about lawsuits and restraining orders. Pemberton collected his briefcase with exaggerated dignity. "We'll be in touch with a formal proposal," he said. "I suggest you retain counsel, Mr. Hale. Both of you." "Already done," Marcus replied. "My brother is represented by Whitmore and Associates. All future communication goes through them." Pemberton's eyebrows rose slightly. Whitmore and Associates was one of the most prestigious family law firms in the state, known for representing high-net-worth clients in complex divorces. Their retainers started at $50,000. "I see," Pemberton said slowly. "Perhaps we've underestimated the situation." "Perhaps you have." Marcus held the door open. "Goodbye." They left, Lena glancing back once at Evan with an expression that might have been regret, or might have been simple calculation about what she just learned. The expensive cars pulled away, and Marcus closed the door. Evan was sitting on the couch, his face in his hands. "Whitmore and Associates?" "Marcus, I can't afford." "I told you. It's handled." "How? How is any of this handled?" "You're a mechanic. I'm nobody. How are you paying for lawyers that charge $500 an hour?" Marcus sat down beside his brother. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, very carefully, he spoke. "Before I came here, before I left my previous work, I had resources. I still have access to some of them. Not for myself. Never for myself. But for you? For making sure you're treated fairly? I'll use whatever I have to." "What kind of resources are we talking about?" "The kind that mean you don't have to worry about lawyers or medical bills or anything else. You focus on getting better. Let me handle the rest." Evan stared at his brother, seeing him as if for the first time. "Who are you, Marcus? Really? Someone who thought he could change the world from inside rooms full of powerful people. I learned better. But you did change it, didn't you? Before you came here." Marcus stood, moving to the kitchen to start dinner. "I tried. Sometimes I succeeded. More often, I just managed to make bad situations slightly less terrible. And in the end, the cost was too high. So I stopped. Because of me. Because of priorities. Because I realized that saving strangers while losing family wasn't heroism. It was cowardice dressed up in noble language. The doorbell rang before Evan could respond. Marcus frowned, checking his watch. 8:30. Late for visitors. He opened the door to find a man in his late 50s, powerfully built despite the gray in his hair, wearing jeans and a worn leather jacket. His hands were scarred, his face weathered, and his eyes carried the kind of awareness that came from seeing too much. "Help you?" Marcus asked. "You Marcus Hale?" "Depends who's asking. Name's Noah Cross. I run an auto shop across town. Heard you helped out my niece last year when her car broke down on the highway. Wouldn't take payment, just fixed it and sent her on her way." Marcus remembered. A young woman, stranded, scared, with 2 kids in the back seat. He'd been driving home from work and stopped to help. She get home safe? She did. Thanks to you. Noah shifted his weight. I also heard about what just happened here. Saw those fancy lawyers leaving. My sister lives 2 doors down. She called me. News travels fast. In this neighborhood, yeah? Noah glanced past Marcus at Evan, who was watching from the couch. Look, I don't know your situation, and I'm not asking. But I know what it's like when people with money decide to crush people without it. And I know that sometimes, a man needs allies who understand the difference between legal and right. I appreciate the thought, but we're managing. Are you? Noah's gaze was direct, assessing. Because from where I stand, you've got a disabled brother being squeezed by his ex-wife's family. You're working at Jimmy's shop for what I'm guessing is barely above minimum wage, and you just threatened a lawyer from Pemberton and Holt. Those people don't forget. They escalate. Marcus studied the older man. There was something familiar in his bearing, a straightness in his spine that spoke of military service. You're a veteran. Marines. 2 tours in the Gulf, 1 in Afghanistan. Got out, opened my shop, been fixing cars and minding my business for 20 years. Noah paused. But I still remember what it means to have someone's back. And I'm good at reading people. You're carrying weight that has nothing to do with car engines. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not offering charity. I'm offering work. I need a senior mechanic, someone who actually knows what they're doing. Jimmy's a good guy, but his shop is small time. I've got contracts with 3 dealerships and a fleet maintenance agreement with the city. The pay is triple what you're making now, and the hours are flexible enough that you can be there for your brother. Marcus hesitated. The offer was generous. Too generous. Why? Because my niece told me you fixed her transmission and her alternator and didn't charge her a dime. Said you told her to save the money for her kids' school clothes. That kind of decent is rare. Noah extended his hand. So what do you say? Give it a trial week. If it doesn't work out, no hard feelings. Marcus looked back at Evan, who was watching with an expression of desperate hope. Triple the pay would mean better physical therapy, better legal representation, breathing room. It would mean dignity. He shook Noah's hand. 1 week trial. Fair enough. Start Monday. 6 a.m. Noah turned to leave, then paused. And Marcus? Whatever you're running from, whatever you left behind, I'm not asking about it. Everyone gets a second act if they want it. Just don't forget that running away and moving forward aren't always the same thing. Noah's shop was a different world. Where Jimmy's operation was cramped and outdated, Cross Automotive occupied a full block with state-of-the-art equipment, 12 service bays, and a staff of 15. Marcus arrived Monday morning at 5:45 to find Noah already there, coffee brewing in a back office that overlooked the floor. Punctual, Noah said approvingly. Coffee? Black. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the early morning light filter through the bay doors. Noah handed Marcus a mug. You'll work primarily on the fleet vehicles? City buses, sanitation trucks, police cars. The contracts are lucrative but demanding. Deadlines matter. Quality matters more. Understood. The other mechanics here are good people. They'll test you first week, see what you're made of. Don't take it personally. It's how things work. Noah paused. They also gossip. If you want your privacy, don't give them anything to talk about. Marcus appreciated the warning. Noted. The week unfolded in a blur of transmissions, brake systems, and engine diagnostics. The other mechanics did test him, assigning him the most difficult jobs with impossible timelines. Marcus completed them all ahead of schedule, his work meticulous and efficient. By Wednesday, the testing stopped. By Friday, 2 of the senior mechanics were asking his advice on complex problems. Noah watched it all without comment, but Marcus caught the satisfied nods, the way the older man observed how Marcus handled not just the mechanical work but the interpersonal dynamics. There was an assessment happening that went beyond carburetor rebuilds and timing belt replacements. On Friday afternoon, as Marcus was finishing up a police cruiser's suspension system, Noah appeared beside him. Got a situation. One of my longtime clients needs help. Her car broke down across town, and she's at some charity event. High-profile thing. Normally I'd send Tommy, but he's tied up with the mayor's detail. You want me to go? If you don't mind. It's a jump start, maybe an alternator. Simple work, but the client's important to my business. Woman named Iris Vale. Runs a biotech company. The name meant nothing to Marcus, but he agreed. Noah provided an address in the financial district, a part of the city where buildings had names instead of numbers and doormen wore white gloves. Marcus drove the shop's service truck through increasingly affluent neighborhoods until he reached a glass tower with a banner announcing the Meridian Accord Annual Charity Summit. Marcus parked in the service area and felt his stomach drop. The Meridian Accord. Of course. The universe had a sense of humor. A woman in an elegant black dress and pearls met him at the service entrance. She was in her mid-30s, attractive in a sharp, corporate way, with eyes that assessed and calculated in the same glance. You're from Cross Automotive? Yes, ma'am. Marcus Hale. I understand you're having car trouble. Iris Vale. And yes, my car won't start. It's in the underground garage, level 2. She led him through service corridors with the brisk efficiency of someone used to solving problems quickly. I apologize for the inconvenience. I have a presentation in 40 minutes, and I can't afford delays. They reached the garage, where a silver Tesla sat silent and dark. Marcus popped the hood, immediately diagnosing the issue. Your battery's dead. Completely drained. This isn't just a jump-start situation. You'll need a replacement. Iris's face tightened. How long? I have a compatible battery in the truck. 20 minutes, maybe 25. Do it. Please. I'll pay whatever premium you need to charge. Marcus was already retrieving his tools. Standard rate is fine, ma'am. He worked quickly, his hands steady and sure, while Iris made phone calls, her voice carrying the particular stress of someone juggling too many critical tasks simultaneously. Marcus caught fragments of her conversations, something about artwork authentication, a donor backing out, reputational concerns. The language of crisis management in elite circles, familiar and foreign at the same time. You're fast, Iris observed as Marcus connected the new battery. Practice. Cross Automotive is lucky to have you. Noah doesn't hire people who aren't exceptional. Marcus glanced up, surprised. You know Noah well? He's fixed my cars for 10 years. Reliable, honest, charges fairly. In my world, those qualities are rare enough to be precious. She checked her watch. Will it start? Try it. The Tesla hummed to life. Iris's relief was visible. Thank you. Genuinely. You may have saved more than just my evening. Marcus closed the hood, gathering his tools. All part of the job. What do I owe you? He calculated quickly. $200 for the battery, $50 for labor and service call. Iris pulled out her wallet and handed him $500 bills. Keep the change. And thank you for not making me feel foolish for letting the battery die. Happens to everyone. Even people running biotech companies. She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from corporate polish to actual warmth. You know who I am. Noah mentioned your name. I may have Googled while driving over. Honest and resourceful. Noah really does have good taste in employees. She paused, studying him with that assessing gaze again. Have we met before? You seem familiar. Marcus's expression didn't change. I don't think so, ma'am. I'd remember. Probably right. Though I meet a lot of people at these events. Speaking of which, I need to run. But thank you again, Marcus. You're a lifesaver. She hurried toward the elevators, her heels clicking against concrete. Marcus packed up his tools, processing the encounter. He'd been in the same building as a Meridian Accord event and managed to avoid everyone who might recognize him. Small victories. His phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Lawyer called. Good news. Talk tonight. Marcus drove back to the shop, handed Noah the payment, and finished out his shift. The other mechanics were friendlier now, including him in their conversations, asking if he wanted to join them for drinks after work. He declined politely, explaining he needed to get home to his brother. Noah walked him out. Iris called. Said you were professional and efficient. High praise from her. Just did the job. She also said something interesting. Said you had presence? That's the word she used. Presence. Noah leaned against the doorframe. I've noticed it too. The way you carry yourself. The way people react to you, even when you're covered in grease. That's not something you learn fixing cars. Marcus met the older man's gaze steadily. Everyone has a past, Noah. You said so yourself? I did. And I meant it. But I also meant what I said about running away versus moving forward. Noah pulled out a business card, handing it to Marcus. This came for you today. Courier delivered it to the shop, asked specifically for Marcus Hale. The card was heavy stock, embossed lettering. An invitation to the Meridian Accord Summit's closing gala tomorrow night. Guest of honor Iris Vale. And in handwritten script at the bottom. Please come. I insist. You deserve an evening off. Iris. I'm not going, Marcus said. Why not? Because that's not my world anymore. Maybe it should be. Noah's voice was quiet but firm. I did some research after I hired you. Nothing invasive, just professional due diligence. Your name came up in some interesting places. Old news articles about defense initiatives. A grainy photo from a Geneva conference. References to someone named Marcus Hale who used to move in very different circles than auto shops. Marcus's jaw tightened. And I think you're hiding. Which is your right. But I also think you're wasting something valuable by pretending to be less than you are. Noah straightened. That woman who just drove away. Iris Vale? She's in trouble. Real trouble. I heard it in her voice when she called, in the way she was panicking about that event. Someone with your background, your connections, your strategic mind, you could probably help her. Maybe even save whatever she's trying to build. That's not my responsibility. No, it's not. But helping people used to be. And I don't think that part of you died just because you changed jobs. Noah walked back into the shop, leaving Marcus standing alone with the invitation. That night, Marcus found Evan in better spirits than he'd seen in months. The lawyer from Whitmore and Associates had called with updates. Lena's legal team had dramatically softened their position after learning about Evan's representation. The custody demands had shifted from exclusion to shared parenting. The financial requirements had become negotiable rather than dictatorial. They're scared, Evan said, his eyes bright. Pemberton actually apologized for the misunderstanding during their visit. Said they'd been operating on incomplete information. Good. Marcus, how did you afford Whitmore and Associates? Their retainer alone is... I told you. Resources from before. But what kind of resources? You're a mechanic. Even with Noah's shop paying better, the numbers don't add up. Evan's voice carried frustration and confusion. I'm grateful, don't misunderstand. But I feel like I don't even know who my own brother is anymore. Marcus sat down heavily. The work I did before, the position I held, it came with compensation. Significant compensation. I never spent it. I didn't need to. It's been accumulating, being managed by people I trust. I use it when necessary, for things that matter. Like me. Like you. Like making sure people who deserve dignity actually get it. Evan was quiet for a long moment. The general who came to see you last week. Patterson. I looked him up after he left. He's not just any retired general. He was part of the International Defense Cooperation's Executive Council. The people he worked with, the operations he oversaw, Marcus, that's not normal military stuff. That's global strategy, international crisis management, the kind of thing that shapes history. It's also the kind of thing that gets people killed. People like you, who get targeted because someone wants leverage. Is that really why you left? Just because of me? Marcus considered the question, the weight of it. I left because I realized something. All that power, all those important meetings and critical decisions, they mattered. They saved lives. But they also cost lives, including the lives of people I loved. And I had to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. The kind who sacrifices family for the greater good, or the kind who understands that the greater good starts with the people right in front of you. That's a false choice. You could do both. No, Evan. I really couldn't. Not and live with myself. Marcus pulled out the invitation Noah had given him. Someone gave me this today. Gala event, high society charity thing. The kind of place where I used to spend my evenings, networking and strategizing. Evan took the card, reading it. Iris Vale. The biotech CEO. You know her? I fixed her car this afternoon. She's apparently grateful enough to invite the mechanic to her fancy party. Are you going? I wasn't planning to. But... Marcus rubbed his face. Noah thinks I should. Says she's in some kind of trouble and I might be able to help. And there's a part of me, a part I've tried to bury, that hears someone needs help and wants to solve it. Then go. It's not that simple. It really is, Marcus. You spent 2 years taking care of me, putting your life on hold, pretending to be someone you're not. Maybe it's time to remember that you can be both. The brother who fixes my breakfast and the man who fixes broken systems. They don't have to be separate. Evan handed back the invitation. Go to the party. Help the woman if you can. Then come home. That's called balance, not betrayal. Marcus stood in front of his closet the next evening, staring at a garment bag he hadn't opened in 2 years. Inside was a tailored suit, custom-made in Milan, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly salary. He'd packed it away when he left his old life, thinking he'd never need it again. Now he pulled it out, the fabric still perfect, the cut still impeccable. Evan watched from the doorway. You clean up well. I feel like I'm putting on a costume. Maybe you've been wearing the costume all along, and this is just you remembering what you actually look like. Marcus adjusted his tie, the motion automatic despite the years. In the mirror, a different man looked back. Not a mechanic. Not someone invisible. Someone who commanded attention without asking for it. The gala was held at the Ashford Grand, a hotel that catered to people for whom money was no longer a consideration but merely a tool. Marcus arrived in his modest sedan, watching valets subtly smirk as they took his keys next to Bentleys and Maseratis. He didn't care. He'd learned long ago that real power whispered while insecurity shouted. Inside, the ballroom was a study in calculated elegance. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, tables draped in silk. Men in tuxedos and women in gowns that cost more than cars moved through the space with practiced grace, their conversations a symphony of name-dropping and strategic networking. Marcus spotted Iris immediately. She stood near the center of the room, surrounded by a small crowd, her smile bright but her eyes carrying stress. She wore a deep blue gown that was striking but not ostentatious, her jewelry understated. When she saw Marcus, her face transformed with genuine surprise and pleasure. "You came," she said, extracting herself from her admirers to greet him. "I wasn't sure you would. You insisted. Seemed rude to refuse. And yet I suspect rudeness wouldn't have stopped you if you truly didn't want to be here." She studied him openly. "You look different. Not like a mechanic at all. Clothes make the man, or so they say." "No, it's not the clothes. It's..." She paused, searching. "It's like you stopped hiding something. Like this is who you actually are, and yesterday was the disguise." Before Marcus could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A group of people had entered, led by a woman in her 60s whose presence commanded immediate attention. She wore white, her silver hair styled severely, her posture absolutely erect. Conversations dimmed as she moved through the room. "Who is that?" Marcus asked quietly. Iris's face had gone pale. "Madame Virex, head of the Axis Council. She's one of the most powerful people in the world. Private equity, political influence, connections that span every major institution. If she's here, something significant is about to happen." Madame Virex's gaze swept the room and stopped on Iris. She approached with measured steps, her entourage following at a respectful distance. Iris straightened her spine, preparing for battle. "Mess. Vale," Madame Virex said, her voice carrying the particular accent of old European money. "How lovely to see you. I understand congratulations are in order for your recent donation to the Meridian Accord." "Thank you, Madame Virex. The cause is important to me." "Indeed. Though I understand there were some complications with authentication. Such an embarrassment when art turns out to be fraudulent." The older woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Particularly when such donations are meant to establish credibility for future ventures." Iris's composure cracked slightly. "The matter has been resolved." "Has it? I heard your company's pending partnership with the Northfall Consortium may be reconsidered in light of the incident. Due diligence, you understand? Reputation matters in our circles." Marcus watched the exchange, recognizing the dynamics instantly. This was a power play, carefully orchestrated public humiliation designed to destabilize Iris's position before some larger move. He'd seen it 100 times in different contexts: boardrooms, diplomatic negotiations, military strategy sessions. The specific arena changed, but the mechanics of dominance remained constant. "Ms. Vale's integrity is beyond question," Marcus said quietly, stepping forward. "The authentication error was the result of a planted operative, not negligence. I'm sure your intelligence network has already confirmed this." Madame Virex's attention shifted to him, her eyes sharp and assessing. "And you are?" "A friend. Someone who recognizes manufactured crisis when he sees it." The temperature in the immediate vicinity dropped several degrees. Madame Virex studied Marcus with the intensity of someone used to cataloging threats. "You speak with unusual confidence for someone I don't recognize. And I make it my business to recognize everyone who matters. Perhaps your business is more limited than you think." Iris grabbed Marcus's arm, her grip tight with warning. Around them, conversations had stopped entirely. What had been background networking had become focused attention on the confrontation unfolding. Madame Virex smiled, and it was genuinely amused. "Interesting. Ms. Vale, your taste in companions has improved. This one has teeth." She turned her full attention to Marcus. "What's your name?" "Marcus Hale." The name landed like a stone in still water. Madame Virex's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. calculation, reassessment. Marcus Hale, she repeated slowly. Of Hale Dynamics. Former senior coordinator for the International Defense Cooperation. Architect of the Karachi Accords. The man who walked away from everything 2 years ago and vanished completely. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. And now you're here, defending a biotech CEO at a charity gala. How delightfully unexpected. The room had gone absolutely silent. Iris was staring at Marcus with complete shock. Other attendees were pulling out phones, searching the name, their faces registering recognition and disbelief. Marcus met Madame Virex's gaze steadily. Ms. Vale is under my protection. Whatever game you're playing, whatever moves you're planning, she's off the board now. Find other pieces. Protection, Madame Virex mused. From you. A man who abandoned his power, his position, his influence. What exactly do you think you can protect her from? Everything you can threaten her with, and more besides. I may have walked away from the spotlight, but I didn't walk away from my resources, my relationships, or my understanding of how systems like yours actually work. Marcus's voice remained quiet, but it carried absolute certainty. You operate through intimidation and manufactured consequences. I operate through actual leverage. We are not the same. Madame Virex's smile widened. This is much more interesting than I anticipated. Very well, Mr. Hale. Consider your position noted. We'll see who has more leverage when the dust settles. She walked away, her entourage following, leaving Marcus and Iris standing in the center of a room full of stunned, whispering guests. Iris turned to him slowly. Who the hell are you really? Marcus looked around at the faces watching them, at the phones recording, at the whispers spreading like wildfire. His cover was blown. His quiet life was over. And standing there in his Milan suit, facing down one of the most powerful women in the world, he felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Alive. I'm exactly who I said I was, he told Iris quietly. Someone who helps when help is needed. The rest is just details. And in that moment, Marcus Hale stopped running from who he'd been and started remembering why that person had mattered. If this story resonated with you, if you want to see what happens when quiet power finally stops hiding, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling us what you think Marcus should do next. And smash that like button because stories about dignity, strategy, and real power deserve to be shared. Subscribe now.